On September 11, 2001, a group of 19 al-Qaeda terrorists, including 15 from Saudi Arabia, hijacked 4 airplanes and hit monumental targets in the United States. 12 years later, a generation has grown up in the shadow of this terroristic act and in a state of constant war. We wanted to know how much kids knew about the events that transpired that late summer day and what they thought about it. So we talked to students, teachers, and even a military parent to find out how much this generation understands.
I think I would believe I was in first grade around that time, and I remember hearing it on the news. Like when I got home, my parents were talking about it, so I didn't really hear about it during school.
It was an attack where terrorists took over an airplane.
Well, 9/11 was basically an attack in September, where we were attacked by it was
terrorists hijacked a plane, a couple of planes, and
they crashed into the World Trade Center.
It was 2 planes. They hit the Empire State Building. Can we start over?
Because they wanted to just, take vengeance on America.
Yeah, they hit the World Trade Center.
World Trade Center. I thought it was Empire State Building. I'm sorry. World Trade Center. It was like 2 of them because
crashed it into the Twin Towers and just killed a bunch of people. And
because and then one hit like in Washington, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're in the Pentagon in Washington. Okay, you want to do that over again?
And it wasn't just a story for my parents anymore. It was history. It was my childhood, and I don't think every kid understands it well, but definitely for my childhood, I do.
9/11 signified, for me, the end of an age of innocence.
I remember being in kindergarten at Bradenton Christian School and my mom coming to pick me up.
I had to be around 3 or 4.
I was like almost 3 years old.
I was in first grade around that time, and I remember hearing it on the news.
I actually was living in New York at the time. So I actually remember, small portions, but nothing serious.
How do you write a history book to explain to a 6th grader that a non-politically aligned religious group acting without the formal consent of their government conducted an attack using non-conventional weapons against a country that had no way to respond unless you're talking about a sledgehammer against a fly?
Well, to be honest, I was never enlightened about that in school. They never really discussed that certain type of situation. It was always like portions of, this might happen because of this, but there was never no strong evidence. This is why we were attacked. So I really honestly do not know exactly why.
With every educational environment, you need to give kids the information, help them critically think about it, and come to conclusions that can be academically based, and so that they themselves enter the world in such a way as not to foster further hostilities or biases.
I used to be scared to say my last name because I just knew that somebody would say something about it. A lot of kids would call me a terrorist or anything just because they look at the name, they automatically assume like, oh, you're Muslim, you are associated with all that, but I wasn't,
Every year on the anniversary, they always came over the PA system and had a moment of silence, but it was never really talked about.
So the whole topic of surveillance and wiretapping and phone tapping comes up a lot in my class with government. There's definitely polar opposites for opinions for the kids, but I trust that the government does what they need to do to keep us safe.
How I feel about the government tracking our phone calls, they shouldn't know all our business and what we're doing and everything unless it's very important.
I don't completely know everything that the act states. I do know that it was put in place at a time when it was needed.
I have to trust that the people that are elected, that have the information, that are making these decisions, are doing what's right.
We were all scared, so we were like, all right, let's do something maybe a little bit drastic because we can always lighten up from there, and we can always work with that, but we have to start something, a basis, a foundation.
I mean, it does kind of scare me away. I have nothing to hide, so it doesn't bother me that way, but it is kind of like, it's personal. Like, I wouldn't want my mom listening in on what I'm talking to with a friend, so the fact that the government is, it's kind of like an invasion of your personal space.
I've made the decision not to fly a lot of places. Do I think that that's somehow unfair? Sure, of course it is. Do I, am I frustrated that my kids can't enjoy this experience? Like, I remember being a kid and flying alone from Chicago to Orlando for a summer vacation to see my grandparents, and it was amazing. And you could actually go to the gate and drop people off, and you could go meet people at the gate and walk out of the airport together. And that has changed. It's a bygone era at this point. And is it frustrating to know that some of those joyful experiences aren't going to be shared? Absolutely. I'm not going to deny that at all.
The only thing that I would like to say is that I just hope that somewhere along, maybe 10 or 20 years later, that things will be a lot better. Like, a lot of people won't have to worry about jobs, and kids can go to school without feeling stressed out about tuition, things like that. Because I feel like education plays a big role in our lives today.
Hopefully we can learn from the events that happened at 9/11, not how do we border up everything tighter and tighter, but how do we reach out to these people who feel so isolated that they have to attack us to try to find purpose? Like, how have we isolated our neighbors to the point that the only option they have left is to strike at us because of ideological differences?
Sometimes it's not, like, looking in the past doesn't really help. Like, sometimes we should be looking towards the future.
I mean, that very concept of our country was founded on give us the weak, the tired, the sick. It didn't matter where you were coming from, come to America and we're gonna figure out a way to make it work. And somehow that's turned into this elitist, privileged group who is viewed by outsiders as being so much better than them that they not only don't want to be here, they want to hurt us because of it. There's an incredible opportunity in our State Department and our foreign relations to sort of figure this out and stop that trend of moving further and further away from the rest of the world and becoming more of it.